The first one when I talked about your backgrounds, it was a dark background, probably not the best thing for first thing in the morning before coffee. So now I have a little bit of a white background. And I was asked to talk about this. Again, if you have questions, there's my phone number up there. You can always text me questions, just put your name in there. You can follow me on Twitter at Schaaf DNP. So we want to talk about this, I guess. I was asked to present this about, just to make sure everybody was comfortable doing this, because we've all been doing a lot more videos and presentations. So, okay, 2 objectives: describe how optimal position of lighting, the optimal position of lighting for presentation, and how to create a podcast. So we look at some tools of the trade for lighting, because we've all been on Zoom, and so, kind of lighting's not bad. There's light rings. I don't have mine lit up, but it's these rings that you can plug in. You can either put it in over your computer in front of you to give you a nice glow. I still feel kind of weird using this. I don't know why. In my office, at home, I have a light that's just to the left of me that I turn on, and that seems to be just enough. And I have a window on my right-hand side, so that now allows enough light for me to use. So these are one tool of trade that you can use if you're creating your own videos. The other one is you can have the equivalent of a mini one that you can put on the top of your phone, that it kind of slides on. These are inexpensive. I think that one, the light ring, was like $15. So pretty inexpensive. Tools of the trade, your AirPods, and they do okay. And I have a pair of headphones. I splurged on these probably a little bit. There's a lot more expensive ones. These are like $100. But I like the ones with the 2 cushy thingies over the ears. I like where you can manipulate the microphone, and I like the little cushy spongy thing to go over the microphone, because I have a tendency, some people have the pop where they go, when you say pop, the p really goes against the microphone. After doing so many videos, I've listened to myself. I'm like, my sympathetic system must be out of whack, because I salivate a lot. And so when I talk, I end up doing this because I salivate a lot. So I have to concentrate on that. So when I'm getting ready to talk, to not do that, or make sure I have a little bit of space before I actually say something so I can edit that thing out. But, and then I guess maybe after a while, I'm like, all right, whatever. So, but these are just some tools of the trade. You don't have to go expensive. Even, when I've listened to some of the podcasts or videos, they're like, you can start out with what you've got, your AirPods and your device. You don't need a fancy camera or anything like that. So we talked about lighting is you want to have your lighting in front of you, because you want light shining on you. All right. If you have light from behind you, the camera will focus on the light part and you'll be all darked out. And so people won't be able to see your face if you want them to see your face. Now, I don't particularly like being in front of a camera. Some people do. I feel like they'll see all my flaws or something like that. So I'm trying to get over that. But just to let you know, so that's why you want to have the lighting in the right position. You want to have it in front of you versus in back. Now I'm under here, under these lights. I'm not sure how I look on camera. But again, you want to try, even if I was in the podium over there in the corner, it's kind of in a shaded area, so I may not come across on video. Okay, now that also being said, the listeners or people watching a video don't necessarily have to see you. It doesn't help them with their learning or anything like that. It's just more of a personalization. But if I don't have to be on camera, I'm not on camera. Okay, so when I start with recording, I always storyboard my presentation. I plan it out. I used to, again, everything I'm telling you are things that I have not done correctly in the past. I used to just, hey, let me wing it. Let me wing it. And then when I listen, I'm like, oh, I forgot to say this or forgot to say that. So I storyboard it. I plan out each slide, what I'm going to say, use my presenter notes. And this is, and when I'm doing recording, whether it's, like mostly videos or what I do, I type out exactly what I'm going to say. Okay. I use it in a casual style. Okay. Just like I'm talking to you now, that's exactly how I type it in there. Like, hi, my name's Sharon. We're going to be talking about this today. Okay, let's get started. Okay. I just plan it all out. So then when I'm ready to record, all I have to do is read from my script. Okay. Room temperature water. All right, if you're in New Mexico, do not record in the month of April. After the month we've had with the wind and the allergies, I have, a post-nasal drip. I've been trying to get some things recorded and I can't because my throat's been scratchy and raw and I haven't been able to. So I'm like, just count on April as being out, from recording. But use your room temperature water. And I always have some with me. If it's too hot or if it's too cold, your throat and vocal cords can kind of get a little out of whack. Same thing if it's too hot. Okay, so always just use room temperature and use water. Try not to avoid like sodas or things like that. This really helps keep your mouth fresh and moisturized the way it needs to when you're talking. Okay, again, headphones and microphones don't need to be high end. Again, I started off with ear pods and then if you're doing a lot of recording and you do it for a while, having these things, and we've been through enough Zoom meetings over the past couple of years, with these, your ears kind of hurt a bit, and then, being healthcare professionals, we always go, oh, got earwax build up because these are in your ears all the time. Same thing like using stethoscopes all the time. You're shoving that stuff in there. So that's why I chose to go with these, that they're a nice cushy one and they're not going inside my ear. And practice. It's just practice. I've gotten more fluent as I go along, but there's times I'm all right. It will happen. Cut those out. You can edit those out. So when I talk about storyboarding, do people understand what that means? Okay. If not, I just put an example up here as and I think there's an updated handout. So this is included. Basically, if you're doing slides or even your segments of what you're going to be talking about, you put them in the squares and then you can talk about, what are your points underneath. So that's how you plan out your presentation. Okay. I do this all the time. So on podcasting, want to talk a little bit about podcasting. I am still new to podcasting. And again, I was all ready to start recording some and then April hit and my voice went, and I was like, I should probably just get over it because I was just watching a video on somebody who does a lot of this. Like, you don't have to be expert. You don't have to be perfect. Just do it. Just do it. And I want everything to be perfect. So when you're doing podcasts, I got some of this information from some people I follow on Twitter. Research podcasts, take a listen. I really hadn't listened to them. So there's a few that I've followed and subscribed to, and I'm just like, okay. And I'm listening to not just necessarily the content, but how they've put it together. Okay, is it kind of a style that fits me? Isn't it what are the different structures of it, things like that. Looking at the podcast types, what is your target audience going to be? Again, what's the structure? What scripts are you going to use? Coming up with an artwork for your podcast, because if you ever go look, you see there's a nice little picture image on what that is. Coming up with intro and exit music. Okay, and then getting it published, and that's probably the last step that I have to get over that hump. It's like analyze. Okay, analyzing your PhD data. Click. No bells or whistles or anything like that, or pushing the defibrillator button. Okay. So yes.
I have a question, maybe you can repeat it. Sorry,
Okay, no.
it takes a while to turn on. In terms of music, how do you find music that isn't copyrighted, but it's okay to use?
Okay, so the question that Kate asked is, how do you find music that's not copyrighted and it's okay to use? There's a lot of royalty-free sites, okay? I create my own, and I will show you how to do it. It's easiest on the iPad. Okay, and I mean, I played in band when I was in high school, but many years ago, I'm like, not necessarily that inclined anymore. I'm out of practice and all that. But I follow this, and there's some people on Twitter that I follow that use the app GarageBand a lot, and they give you examples on how to create music. Simple stuff. Yeah. And I was like, what? Okay. So what I would challenge you to do is explore 3 different podcasts. Okay. Think about what the genre is, what's the name of it, what's it about, just to kind of explore and see if you don't follow them already, or if you're thinking about it, how do you want to do it? Okay, what kind of format might you like? So go ahead and take a listen to some. And usually they run about 20 to 30 minutes. Some run an hour. I don't really have that attention span. So that's what all you have to consider when you're considering podcasting. What is your audience? And all those things. But as we talk about podcast type, there's kind of 4 different types, and I'm not going over every single type. These are the ones I'm just choosing to present. There's an interview where I can sit and I'm going to talk with Kate. Hey, we're going to talk about this topic, and here's some questions for you. What do you have for me? Da 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 da. There's a panel where it could be like there's a whole big panel of us, and we're all just kind of discussing things. A solo podcast where it's just me talking about stuff, sharing my opinions, thoughts, whatever. And sometimes I have trouble because I'm like, do I really have interesting thoughts to share? Are people going to listen to it? I don't know. Okay. Or you have a co-hosted where it's two co-hosts. Amber and I, we're going to be talking about things today. We have something in common, so we're going to talk about those kinds of things. So when we're considering, if you're going to consider a podcast and you're going to put it together, think about who your target audience is. What themes do you want to use? What's kind of the age group? Is there a niche? Are there any ones that they maybe enjoy? Is it related to occupation or lifestyle? Now, if you're thinking about you're like, a podcast, what am I going to talk about? It doesn't have to, we're here at a nurse practitioner conference. It does not necessarily have to be a nurse practitioner related topic. You may choose to. Is someone here maybe in a rural area? Like kind of out? You may want to, if you want to do something, you can just talk about, hey, what is it like to be a nurse practitioner in a rural area? These are the issues I come up with, and this is how I deal with them. It could be that. It can be totally off topic. I have one that I want to do that's talking about educational technology. Okay. So it's, I may want to do one on, sometimes I'm like, I have no life. All right, I have the soap booth out there. That's my plug. I want to talk about making soaps and how much fun I have with it or whatever. I could do a podcast on that. Okay, so it doesn't, as we're here at the NP conference, these don't always have to be, I'm doing one on nurse practitioner related stuff. It can be on whatever you want. You may have a craft or an activity or something you do outside of being a nurse practitioner. Okay, but just kind of things to think about. So I know this is in the handout, so you can even also use this as a template to kind of write things down for you. But, what's your niche? What?
Some people had questions, but they didn't have your number from the first slide. So I just put your number in the text thread. So if they have questions for you, your number is in the text.
Oh, okay.
In the chat box. So it's not on here.
Okay.
It was your slide. It was on the first slide.
Oh, okay.
So someone had a question, but he came in person. He's here now. He'll ask you it live.
Okay.
But
And
it's now in the chat box, your phone number, so that it's
great. Okay. And someone's outside looking for me for the table. Her. I don't have access to the chat box from here. Do you, Kate?
Yes.
Okay.
And I had sent them a message that it was on the first, if they had that.
Okay.
That it was on there, but it's better to have it right in the chat box.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, so when you're doing podcasts, I mean, we have to, as nurse practitioners, we talk, I think the first day they talked about, self-care and all that. Sometimes you have to get away from being a nurse practitioner and do something that you just really enjoy. Maybe talking about, camping and hiking, in New Mexico, what's cool. I'm going to go do this. Hey, these are some great places to go. And you just, go all around the state talking about these places. I mean, it could be something as simple as that. You never know. So here's when we talk about a couple of the structures, I'm just talking about 3 of them. The solo podcast. So when you look at the structure, there's like an introduction. You bring up topic A, then you transition, maybe have some comment, go to a commercial break, talk about your next topic, and then provide a summary. And then you have what we call an outro or an exit. Kind of, okay, thanks for coming. Let's see you next time or whatever. So that's kind of like a solo podcast with one person. The interview is, I'm going to use Kate as an example because she's right there in front of me. I'm going to talk about, okay, this is what we're going to be talking about in the podcast. Here's Kate. She's my guest, a little bit about her. And then we have a discussion on the topic that we've pre-decided. I'm not going to surprise them with some topic that Kate has been a nurse practitioner with eyes, correct? I'm not going to ask her some weird question about cardiology. Okay, and then she's like, we're going to have something planned out ahead of time, storyboarded, okay? What are the takeaways? We may do something that's eye related and how cardiology impacts it. Hypertension. Well, what do we see in the eyes for end organ damage or something like that? So we would do something like that versus, hey, Kate, what do you want to talk about today? Okay, and then provide a summary and then, do our exit. We can have a panel podcast where there's a group of us. We do an introduction, we kind of catch up on things. What's our topic A? A little bit of discussion, topic B. Then we do a summary and then an exit. So these are kind of some structures that you can follow. Here's the script part. This is a hard part because I can sit down. Some people can chit chat away. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. I don't chit chat away. So I need some structure. So we can have what's called the dot point approach. So it's basically just a bulleted outline. These are things I'm planning on talking about today. It gives you a little bit of order. Sometimes I might need a little bit more. There's a word for word approach. Okay, so you have a script you read from word for word, which is not bad. But again, you cannot read from the script word for word without any tone inflection and in a monotone voice. You still have to be a little casual about it. So if you are going to do a script that's word for word, type it out exactly how you would say it. Put the okays in there. Try not to do the us or the ums, things like that. But, at least, that a little bit more casual style. Okay. You could do a detailed episode approach where everything's a detailed outline. It's probably kind of in between the dot point approach and the word for word. So you have an outline, but with more details, but not necessarily what you're going to say word for word. So podcast artwork. How do you create this? Some people are artists. I am not. I can maybe draw a stick figure. I can't draw really a true circle. But this is where I've kind of gotten to use a lot of my keynote presentations that I use. So I use this as one of the background from the keynote presentation. Is kind of that, starting with orangey, transitioning over into the teal or aqua color. I created an emoji. That was one that was whispering. And then I had the one with the laptop in front of it. So my podcast, I'm going to call the Ed Tech Whisperer. That's the hardest part. What do you come up with a name? I don't know. I Twitter with my students and I'm the, AGACNP whisperer. And I'm like, okay. I watch Cesar Millan. All right. The dog whisperer. There's the horse whisperer. There's a ghost whisperer. I'm like, all right. But that's all I did. So as I just created my emoji and I put my image in there, put a little text in there, kind of used a fun font. After the readable slides, this doesn't have to necessarily be totally, perfect. So I kind of did something that's playful. And then I just did a screenshot of it. Something simple. Doesn't have to be, and there's a lot out there. So when you're exploring podcasts, see what they did. Just take a look and kind of have fun with it. But I used my keynote. Kind of went really nice. So intro and exit music. Sorry, as we're thinking of talking. I use GarageBand. It's on my app, it's on my Mac. I use the one on my iPad. It's a little smoother to use. They use the iPads with K through 12 and the K people are using GarageBand, so I figure it's safe for me. It has what's called live loops in there. So basically you tap one of those and then the picture that's here on the, so let's say, I don't know, I tap this one. I don't know, maybe I'm, okay. What you see on the right-hand side is what shows up in there, okay? So it's kind of pre-planned for you, which is nice, okay? So then all you have to do is, at the bottom, you see these little arrows here. If you tap on one of them, like where I have the arrow, everything in that column will play for you. Okay? Which is not, and I have that on the next slide. And then you can go through and you can pick, pick the next column or whatever, or you can mix and match any of these, one from each column to come up with your own. That's how you come up with your own intro exit music. Okay. And there's a variety. There's chill music, there's upbeat music, there's R&B, jazz, all kinds with the loops that you can get. This comes with, again, I don't get a kickback from Mac or Apple, but it's so easy to use. These are all free downloads. It's all free, which is nice. So here's an example. Let's see if it plays. See if I can get it to play. Afraid to tap it again. No. May have to go but today. I want to step in front of the. Okay, I need to settings, share computer sound. Now, I may need to unmute. I have my sound. Play again. Technology, right? But can you turn it up more? All right, let me play it again. She's got sound over there.
Showing us how to use GarageBand. I don't really need to know that. GarageBand, to make music for our presentation podcast.
I just tapped right here. And then what you'll see is that I just tapped through several of these layers to kind of build it up. And you can see record and record for as long as you want. But that's how you do it. It's that simple. Using GarageBand is just you can come up with it and you can just mix and match to get what you like, record it. You only need like 8 seconds of it. Pretty straightforward. So, and that's easy ways to go to make sure that nothing is, it's all royalty free. And again, they have a lot of different loops and sounds that you can use. Okay. And so then what and we do this, I do this in GarageBand, and then you can, if you're going to record your podcast, you can do that also in GarageBand. Part of the app is using the audio recorder that's in there. They have some, they have some fun things that you can do with it as far as your voice and being creative. Again, I'm probably boring, just you want a narrated part, the narrator on there. It takes you to this screen. You hit the red dot at the top. It records and you just start talking. Read from your script. And then what you can do is slide in your intro music and your exit music. It sounds, everybody, I think I perceive it as a lot more difficult, but it's easy. It's just really taking that step. And then what you then do is then you publish it to, Anchor is one of the places you can publish it to, and then it'll kind of spread it out through all the like iTunes, Spotify, and things like that. It's 100% free for hosting. It's an all-in-one platform. You just need email to sign up. And then there's the information on how to start a podcast. So then I want to talk about videos a little bit. Again, very similar to the podcast, you want to know who your target audience is. All right, sometimes I really wonder if I have a life because I watch my free time. I also do quilting. So I watch all these videos and I'm like, oh, they're so perfect. And they cut and paste and edit, and I'm like, yeah, they don't have the ones where it's like, yeah, pulling out the seam ripper. It went wrong, whatever. So So my podcast for that, or my video for that for YouTube will be the expert seam ripper, because that's one thing I'm expert at. And I know they are too, they just don't show it. Okay, again, you have to plan it. We're gonna talk about cameras, editing, intro and exit music, and then publishing it. So a lot of different types of videos that you can do. Again, explore. If you haven't watched the YouTube video, you know, kind of look at different ones. Part of my routine, and my husband and I would sit down, we don't watch regular TV anymore, we watch YouTube, because my husband does woodworking. He has a nice lathe and he has a bandsaw now. So we watch those. And then I critique him for, how did they put them together? Okay. Quilting ones, how did they do it? You know, so start looking at how they present their material. After these several more, a couple more topics, you're going to start looking at presentations in a different way. So you can do a recorded presentation. This is probably the one thing I do the most of, at least for my teaching. It's, for me, I can do that pretty quickly. I can get them together. And I do one on how to use an otoscope. And then there's tutorials. Okay, so then in also our free time, I'll show you another video later. We tried to epoxy some tabletops. So I have some pictures on that. Again, I try and create as much of my own content as possible. So then I'm not using anybody else's. And again, I'm always pulling on my camera, videoing things or taking pictures. And that was a hard habit to get into. So again, storyboard your presentation. Plan out what you're gonna do. Use your presenter notes or a teleprompter. You can use your iPad as a teleprompter. Gather your assets. And your assets are gonna be like the images or videos that you're gonna be using. So presenter note, all right, I had to do this last night. This is using my presenter notes. So for on slide number 6, that's the one that you can see here. These are my notes. And this is exactly what I'm saying. I am saying there's a groove on the top of the otoscope head where the specula secures into place. Slide the specula onto the otoscope head and twist to secure the specula. Now, do you know how many times I had to say the word specula to get it down? The little otoscope head, okay? Yeah, so there's some words I have to practice a lot. I did one on the drug Plavix, the generic name, clopidogrel. The only reason I'm so good at saying it is because I've had to say it a lot. All right, so yeah, so it's, you practice it. But this, and it keeps you focused, all this. Now my videos, I try and keep about 8 minutes because people don't have that long of attention span. So I try and keep these about 8 minutes. Okay, so the teleprompter app is up here. It looks like this, it's called teleprompter. And so basically what it does is, if you're recording yourself live, okay, over here on the left-hand side of the screen is your script. And you hit play when you record, and it scrolls up, and it's on the left-hand side, which is where my camera is. So it always looks like I'm looking into the camera. Because sometimes we record, we look at the screen, but the camera's over here. So it looks like you're looking away from the camera. So this one, it just, let's see if I can play, oh, shoot, then just tap my face. That's not what I wanted to do.
Welcome to the teleprompter for video app. Welcome to the teleprompter.
All right, I didn't make it a movie then.
Which allows you to read from a script from a teleprompter while filming yourself. The app makes use of the high-definition camera and quality microphone.
So it doesn't show the words when
Ensuring
you do your
are
final
perfect
recording.
and looking directly into the camera.
That's how dorky I look on video, which is why I don't like myself on video. Okay. But that even if you're recording something else and you just need the teleprompter to walk you through the words. And so I just had it was just scrolling up as I was recording it. So, but that's what the final outcome is. Cameras, they're in your hand. You have your iPhone, your Android, your tablet or your iPad. They all have Even, I mean, I splurged on this one. I have the Pro Max, the Pro, not the Max, but the Pro. It's got the, you know, but even the non-Pro ones, the latest ones are really giving you some really good video quality. So you really don't need to buy a special fancy, you know, clip camera or something like that. It doesn't, you can just use these. You know, you've got the tools. Even most of the computers and the laptops have a camera embedded in them. Or you can get the little webcams, attach those in. They're not that expensive, and you know, they're plug and play into your computers. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. But if, I mean, if you're going to be recording yourself, a little webcam's fine. If you're going to be out and about, everybody has their phone with them. You just go around capture. Unless you have a flip phone, hopefully you've advanced beyond the flip phone. That kind of takes you through it. But we've got devices in our hand. You can use them. Then you have to look at camera setup, which is another reason I've probably only been on camera. You can have it overhead. I think we were, the suturing, they had a camera overhead. It could have been recorded. It could have been just a video camera, an iPad over there. It could have been projected on the screen. You can do a high angle, something that's eye level or low level, whichever you want. A lot of people look at the camera like this, but if you're a little extra here in the throat area, you want to look up a little bit just to, you know, look at your best angle, right side, left side. I mean, things to consider. Now, this is just, doesn't have to be that it's you in the camera. Think about what you're filming. If my husband's doing something on his lathe, he may want it right above it. So then we can see how things are turning. Or maybe over at this side where not all the wood chips are gonna be, you know, spraying at the camera or something like that. You know, but just consider how you're gonna put your camera setup. So then we look at our assets. So these are my assets. They're the digital pieces of imagery that I'm gonna be putting in my video. Okay, so we did these tables. And I was capturing pictures. I should have, in the shower this morning, I should have worn my quilts. Okay, so we're following along, and so these are my series of my assets. Some are video, some are standard images. Okay, let's see if I, all right, that one's going. So, all right, so we're starting the beginning. He's standing. Whatever. Then we're showing us mixing. I don't know which the next one is. Okay, then we're pouring in. The ones that aren't moving are just static pictures. Okay, but you get the idea. I've captured some video and some static pictures. Okay. So then I edited. There's a couple apps you can use. iMovie on the Mac. I'm sure there's a PC version, but I don't know what it is because I don't know what it is. Or you can use Clips, which is also on your iPad and your iPhone. I also wanted to point out that there's a book, an iBook, called Everyone Can Create Video. And it goes through a lot of these in a lot more detail. And again, and it's interesting because the book is geared towards K through 12. I'm like, if they can do it, we can do it. Okay. So, yeah. Now I put all those, it just looks weird because it's just the way it came out. I put all those clips, and I use the app Clips on the iPad. It has music in there that's already built in, that's royalty free, so you can use that. In here. This takes the longest part, that's why I have the longest video on this part. I was able to put in a little away we go, because you can add those little stickers in there. We're mixing it. Poured it. This wasn't anything bad, it's just me moving my camera. My final picture.
That's neat.
Yeah. So I had all my video clips. I mean, I threw this together. I did my intro, I put my music, and I added my other clips into it, and then my exit. Boom, and I put it together in, 5 minutes.
Where do you send it?
So then you can publish it if you want. YouTube is probably the big one out there. Okay. Now, some of the videos, and I even for ones for my students, we use through our learning management system. That's where we put it up through. But some I do have. I'm probably going to transfer more to YouTube. We're moving to a new learning management system, so it's just probably going to be easier to put in that YouTube link. But yeah, you just need a Gmail. You get free uploads. You can list them as public, private, or unlisted. I think I probably do the ones I do for my students. I do as unlisted. It's not really for general public. It's more for them. There's other settings, like I do set some for, this was on echocardiography. It's for 18 and above. It's not for kids. I mean, they could watch. There's nothing really gross about it or anything, but I just kind of do all my content that way. So, they have YouTube has videos on how to make videos and how to publish them. So they have more information on that. But, and I probably do, low-level basic kind of settings for that. I put some hashtags in there, nurse practitioner, education, cardiology, some things like that. So yeah, so then you just publish it to that, or you can just, like that video, I share with my family and friends or something like that. Facebook, something like that. Here's some resources. There's the Everyone Can Create Video, which I told you about. There's one that's called Everyone Can Create Music. It's an iBook. It's available. These are free downloads. I love free. Okay, and then Matt Coots is one I follow on Twitter, and he has a little book, So You Want a Podcast, and it's like a quick little 10-page book. They're easy reads, and they walk you through the process, and you can follow along with them. It's really, for the more in-depth kind of information on those. But thank you. Any questions?
This is really interesting. I really appreciate it.
More interesting than you thought it was going to be. You're like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
No, but it's fine. Go back. It's fine. No, ask your question. It was a good question.
I guess the only question I had was actually pertaining to the last presentation.
Yes, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I know whenever I try to create like handouts and slides like that, and I have animations, that the animations end up to be the last picture on the slide and the content get lost. Do you have any suggestions for that, or?
Yeah, because you're going from something that's 3D, it could be 3-dimensional, or it could be, animation, and then you're going to a printed document. You're going to lose it. And it all depends on what your animation might be. I don't know, videos, if you're going to do a presentation, you're going to include a video in there, upload it to YouTube, put the YouTube link in the handout. That's a way they can at least access that. As far as the animations, there's a way you can print it, but it's not really.
Yeah, I've tried like turning off the animations just to make the handouts, and it still does. It seems to still kind of mess things up. I don't know if Keynote's any happier with that. I know PowerPoint's not very forgiving.
Yeah, again, you're trying to go from doing a movie to a piece of paper.
Yeah.
It's not conducive really to that. The only other way I can think of maybe doing it is if you're doing a handout, and a lot of people say, oh, we want your PowerPoint slides. Yeah, because people use that as a handout.
Right.
So again, I have my students, the ideal and the exceptional way to do it is, here's your PowerPoint slides, here's a handout that's a supplement, but not just a copy of the slides.
Mhm.
So if you had an animation, so if you were using, I know we can do it, I'm pretty sure we can do it in Pages document that's with the Mac. You can include animations in that handout, but it's still a digital product. Okay. And I like to try and save paper. So if I don't have to use paper, that's fine. But you can also include a movie in that digital document. The thing I think back to is, all right, maybe I'm dating myself, the Harry Potter movies. When you saw the poster flyers and then there was a movie kind of, they were doing it and there was probably like an animated GIF that they put in there, that's what your handout would be like.
Yeah.
It's just when it gets printed out on, going 3D to 2D, it's not gonna have that same effect. But now start looking at creating digital documents that can do that.
Yeah.
That's up in the game a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking like just in particular, even with this conference, we get copies of the presentation slides beforehand or whatever you submitted. And then, when I haven't actually looked at yours in particular, but some of the other presenters, when you get the slides and it's just whatever that last animation was, then I'm here and I'm, watching it. I was like, oh, there's a lot more to that slide than,
Yes.
than a big arrow pointing left,
Yes.
right, or whatever.
Yeah, there is. So yeah, it's hard. I mean, because when you're going for something that's, it's a static image, there's really not much way to do that unless you develop handouts, which I was working on. It didn't come across very well. That supplement it in a way that's a digital document where you can include the animations, the movies, all of those things in it. But it's just people are still used to, I want to have a piece of paper, print it out and write on it.
The technology has just surpassed.
Yes.
The ability of the handouts.
Yeah.
So that your presentations are more interesting,
Yes,
more involved, but it just doesn't translate.
it doesn't. So that's why I do a lot with digital documents. So, using and I've had my students, yeah, you need to have an iPad because then you can start sketchnoting and, writing on those or typing in on those, however you want to do it, versus here's a paper handout because you do lose a lot. Yeah.
I have a question / comment. My personal nemesis is the handout that is just a copy of the slides,
Correct.
because that's the key points, but a lot of what you get out of a presentation is from other things. And early on, when I first started doing presentations, I never used early on, it was slides that you had to pay to create, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera. But once we got to digital,
Yeah.
I never just gave my slides as a handout. I made an outline that followed the slides so they didn't get lost, but it had more of the salient points. That's a lot of extra work, though.
It is.
So,
But that's what makes it, like when I talk to my students, that's what makes it exceptional versus acceptable.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are still stuck in I just want to copy the PowerPoint handouts. I just want to copy the PowerPoint slides. It's a mindset going from that to translate.
We use a lot of things on the NMNPC website that are digital documents and our newsletter, for instance. We had one issue that we did a lot of videos on, but obviously if you printed the newsletter, that was lost.
Correct.
But, so many people are willing to do a digital document. So links work and
Yeah.
videos work and animations work, but you've got to have someone that's willing to give up that. I have to have a piece of paper in my hand.
Yeah, I am going to say probably through COVID, people have been a little bit more willing to do that, but it's still, I want a tangible item in my hand. Going back to our comfort zones.
What helped with that? Just from
You have to talk now.
I'm one of Sharon's students, but I think what helped with that is when you made like a, a cheat sheet for chest tube, I'm not chest tube, I'm sorry, chest x-ray interpretation. Do you remember that? So she had like all these videos that we watched, like learning how, but like we printed out like this, it was like a, I think it said cheat sheet or something like that.
Yeah, it was just cheat sheet and it had A through,
Yeah, so what we
something like
did
that.
was we used that sheet, and then as we're watching all the videos, and I don't know if they were PowerPoints per se, but they were slides, you know.
explain
that-
everything.
Yeah, explain everything slides. Then we were using just this one piece of paper, so I didn't feel like I had to print out the whole thing. So that was kind of nice, because then it like, we could follow along with your points, like do like this first, this second, this third, and I found that very helpful. So I didn't feel like I had to print out the whole thing, even though I know like this much about interpreting chest x-rays, but I found that helpful. I don't know if that helps, but you know, having like a cheat sheet thing
Yeah.
helped, you know.
Yeah, and that's part of, developing engagement and all that. But sometimes, and it's real interesting because during school, we talk about, educational technology, how do we get engagement, collaboration, helping students learn. But then when we're here at a conference, it's like that all goes out the window. We're all here, we're just here just to get our CEs and, but yeah, it's really a mind shift change and a whole paradigm shift change. And it's slow. But remember when before, well, okay, some people may not remember before PowerPoint. Mimeograph machine. Remember those? First grade, second grade, all those things. So yeah, so we we transitioned from that, or the overhead projector with the transparencies that were written on, so we've evolved over time. I mean, if we were using a transparency overhead, you guys would be like, right? So, and even PowerPoint is so 90s. It's really learning how to do the presentation well and engage with your audience and go from there. But it is hard to transition back to, because the technology has evolved, and that's the key thing. Now, if I had to do something, I would go ahead and record. This would be something that I could record, go over my notes, kind of show things, and then yes, that would be available for upload, because that would be then the way to really get across with all the animations and things like that. Yeah, it is extra work, but it's the times we live in. Any other questions?
Thank you. That was excellent. We're on a half-hour break now.
Yes. We can stop recording.